And joining us now from his district in Tulare, California, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes. Mr. Chairman, I want to start with these leaks that President Trump has been so angry about, coming from all kinds of different places. Help people understand the difference between a leak that is just kind of something an administration doesn't want to, and a leak that is illegal or would be the subject of investigation, as you've asked the FBI to investigate.
Well, there's three very specific leaks that I have a big problem with. One is the transcript with the discussion that Donald Trump had with the Mexican president. Two is the conversation that he had with the Australian Prime Minister. And then, of course, three is the leaking of Mike Flynn's name to the press shortly after the first of the year. These are all against the law. And you can't operate a government like this if you can't even have the President of the United States or his National Security Advisor able to have conversations in private with foreign leaders.
Explain on Mike Flynn. People have heard his name so much in this conversation or conversations he had with the Russian ambassador. Give us a little more detail on why that bothers you.
Well, if this was picked up as incidental collection because perhaps they had a warrant on someone else, typically an American citizen wouldn't be unmasked. Somebody decided to unmask that name, somebody within the either Department of Justice or others within the administration. If that happened, why did that happen? What would be the purpose of unmasking an American citizen's name? In this case, at the time, he was a private citizen. So if his name was unmasked, somebody made that decision, and we need to know who made that decision. Did they really use a 1799 law called the Logan Act as the reason for unmasking his name? If that's the case, we have bigger problems in this country than what we really even realize.
Why do you think these leaks, the one you just described and others, where do you think they're coming from and why?
Well, I mean, this is why I think that the FBI and others need to investigate this, because the number of people that would actually have known that Mike Flynn, General Flynn, who was the National Security Advisor designated, was having conversations with the Russians, had to be very, very small number. And it had to be the highest, at the highest levels of the Obama administration.
And Mr. Chairman, what do you think does that say anything about the relationship between the intelligence communities, where this leak may have, and other leaks may have come from, and President Trump?
Well, let's get straight what we're talking about with the intelligence agencies, because I think there's a lot of innuendo out there that the intelligence agencies have a problem with Donald Trump. The rank and file people that are out doing jobs across the world, very difficult places, they don't pay attention to what's going on in Washington. What we have is we do have people in the last administration, people who have burrowed in, perhaps all throughout the government, who clearly are leaking to the press. And it is against the law. Major laws have been broken. If you believe the Washington Post story that said there were 9 people who said this, well, these are 9 people who broke the law. All
right, Mr. Chairman, we're going to take a break. We'll come back with you, so nobody go away. Welcome back to Face the Nation. I'm John Dickerson. We continue our conversation with Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to get back to what you said about those who had burrowed in the intelligence agencies, maybe holdovers from or supporters of President Obama's. Is that something you're going to look into with your committee in terms of those people who were burrowed in?
No, we won't. But one of the things on this Russia issue, John, that is important is that the House Intelligence Committee has long been conducting ongoing investigations into Russia. And in fact, a year ago, I publicly stated that the biggest intelligence failure since 9/11 was our failure to understand Putin's plans and intentions. At the time, the administration balked at that. The IC ignored it. And it wasn't until after they lost an election that they started to pay attention to Russia. So I'm happy that they're paying attention to Russia now. I'm happy the American people are paying attention to Russia. There are Russia hawks now. I think there's more Russia hawks in Congress than there are congressmen and senators. And so we're happy to expand this investigation. I welcome it. However, we are not going to go on witch hunts against the American people, against American citizens. And, you know, basically putting names of people in newspaper outlets, that's not real credible evidence that an American citizen has done something wrong. But if there are American citizens who are from any political party that are communicating with Russian agents I want to know about it. Bring it to the committee because we'd like to investigate.
And you're referring to the stories that the White House said are no merit to them, which is citizens who were involved in the Trump campaign having any contact with the Russians. Is that what you're referring to?
That's correct. As far as I know, our law enforcement agencies don't have that information. So is there someone else that has this information? But, you know, I would think I'd like for these people to bring this information to me so that we could investigate.
Is your committee going to investigate Michael Flynn? The Senate Intelligence Committee is investigating him. Will yours?
Well, we'll investigate. What I've said is we'll follow the facts wherever they lead. So if there's credible evidence against General Flynn that he's done something wrong, we'd love to do that. But the fact of the matter is, I don't see any evidence that he actually discussed Russia sanctions dealing with the annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Ukraine. If Michael Flynn, if General Flynn was talking about Obama's pettiness that he did right after Christmas, kicking out a few Russian diplomats and telling the Russians not to overreact, and if the FBI used the Logan Act, I think we have much bigger problems here than Michael Flynn. He's the least of the problems we have in this whole issue.
I want to ask you a question about taxes quickly, but you mean pettiness, meaning the sanctions put on Russia based on their meddling in the election. Is that what you meant?
Well, I don't think anybody in their right mind, when I talk sanctions, we're talking about sanctions of foreign governments, the EU and others, the economic sanctions. What President Obama did after Christmas was a joke, and the Russians laughed at it.
Let me ask you quickly about taxes. Comprehensive tax reform coming. Senator Graham said that the House and the Senate are not on the same page. He said you couldn't get 10 votes for what House Republicans are putting forward in the House. What's your prospect for tax reform, and when's it going to happen, do you think?
Yeah, so one of the things with tax reform is it's very, very difficult. So we've spent the last decade looking at every possible reform. And one of the things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to educate the American public. Currently, right now, nobody can understand the tax code. The tax reform that we're talking about is one that actually the American people, once they understand it, will like it, and they'll be able to implement it. And it really is the way that Donald Trump can make America great again. And so we have a lot of education to do, including in the House of Representatives, including with the United States Senate. And so, you know, at this point, I would expect that a lot of senators, if they don't even know what's in the plan, and they don't even know how it works, you know, there's just a lot of work that has to be done, including a lot of sales that have to be done by the President of the United States. But I do believe that the fate of the American people and our economy relies on us getting fundamental tax reform done, blowing up this existing tax code, and moving to a clean, transparent system that's fair for all Americans.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.